The Saints just got absolutely embarrassed by the Buccaneers, dropping 50 points, going from 2-0 to 2-4. And I hate to say it, guys, it's officially time for us to start hitting the panic buttons and, most importantly, get Dennis Allen out of New Orleans. We'll talk about that and Spencer Rattler right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Houda Nation? Welcome back inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Vogel, and as always, we're brought to you by Scott Ficknair, injury lawyers who've been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, hurt offshore. Scott Ficknair handles it all. They give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. So we got a lot to talk about today. Spencer Rattler made his debut. The Saints defense embarrassed themselves, and Dennis Allen dropped to 26-50 as a head coach, which is flat out embarrassing. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, leave your comments, your thoughts, your suggestions, your predictions in the chat, and we'll get them going later on when we get to our John Deere Q&A. And also want to advise you guys, if you like what we're doing here at Buccaneers Media, make sure to like the video. It greatly helps out the channel. And also subscribe if you haven't already. We do our pregame shows, our halftime shows, previews, all that, and obviously our postgame live stream. So let's get into it, guys. I was excited at halftime. Saints, scored 27 in the second quarter, made things look really fun. And then the second half hits, and it was really embarrassing. And everything went downhill. Defense struggled. Spencer Rattler struggled. Not a lot to get to. But before I get into what really went south for the Saints, I want to focus on the rookie quarterback, and then I will get things off my chest because I am so fed up when it comes to the Dennis Allen error. I'm so fed up. So let's start off with Rattler. I thought he came out looking pretty sharp. I thought he looked comfortable on the run. Rollouts were doing well. And he was doing things that we haven't seen yet from Derek Carr. So that kind of gave me, a little bit of optimism about what this rookie can do. And I don't think one start and him throwing 2 picks in the second half and kind of looking, no pun intended, rattled later on in the game is going to make me feel like, oh, he can't be the quarterback of the future. But I think it's a nice little reminder for a lot of us that it's hard being a quarterback in this league, and it is very hard for rookies to just have everything go so smoothly. I know it's been that way for Jaden Daniels for the most part, but it doesn't always go that way. It's very hard to be consistently great in the NFL. Now, another part of it too, not a lot of weapons. And while the Saints were able to manufacture offense early, they didn't make great adjustments. I thought Todd Bowles did a great job of throwing the house at Spencer Rattler for the majority of the game. The Saints, however, were unable to make adjustments, and that really hurt. And Noah Olave was a big factor in it, not having offensive weapons to rely on. But this is what I came down with for Rattler. I think the arm talent was absolutely on display, good mobility on display, but he pressed towards the end of the game, and I thought he missed some throws that he should have been able to make. And again, it was an inconsistent game. If I were to give a letter grade, it'd be somewhere in the C's, maybe like a C+ before that last drive where he pressed. But overall, I need to see more. And we are going to see more from him. And I think that's a good thing because I think the Saints have to figure out if they got anything in this kid. So with that said and that done, let's get into the main problem. Because Spencer Rattler did struggle in the second half of this game, but that's not why the Saints lost. The Saints lost this game because their defense was incapable of stopping a nosebleed. And what really bothers me is this defense, which gave up, I'm going to pull up the numbers here, I couldn't believe it, 277 rushing yards, 7.9 yards per carry, and had 595 yards of offense given up. That defense is led by Dennis Allen. So you have a head coach who's a defensive-minded head coach, and his defense can't stop anything? Can't stop the run. We saw it last week against the Chiefs. We saw it this week against the Bucs. Can't stop the pass. Can't tackle. Chris Godwin was catching the ball in the flats and then making 7 guys miss. Every week, it's the same shit. And you know what? Injuries are a big reason why the offense is really, kind of spiraling out of control. What's the excuse for the defense? I know they're banged up at safety, but you can't tell me that being banged up at safety is why they can't stop the run, can't stop the pass, can't tackle, can't do anything right. And yes, I know that it's irresponsible to fire a head coach when you got a football game in 4 days from now because the Saints got to turn this thing around quickly because they got the Broncos coming into the Dome. But enough is enough, and I tweeted this, and I fully believe this. Every day we move forward where the Saints don't fire Dennis Allen, it's a slap in the face to me, it's a slap in the face to you, it's a slap in the face to every Saints fan who likes this team because this guy fucking sucks. He is 26-50 as a head coach. 26-50. That means a third of the time he's actually doing his job, which his job is to win football games. What other profession can you be 1 for 3 at your job and that's viewed as okay? It's not acceptable. And for everyone that said, oh, you can't use the Raiders tenure against him. Okay, fine. Let's get the Raiders tenure out of here. He's under 500 as the head coach of the Saints. He's not good. They went from 2-0 to 2-4 in the blink of an eye. I literally, I don't know where the time's gone. It felt like it's been a week, and they went from 2-0 to 4 games under 500. And at this rate, they're not going to win Thursday, and they're not going to win the week after that, and they're not going to win the week after that because every game you go into, he's going to be the inferior head coach. Literally pull up the schedule. Thursday nights, Sean Payton's a better coach. After that, they play the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh's a better coach. You play the Browns. Kevin Stefanski's a better coach. You play the Rams. McVay's a better coach. Play the Packers. LaFleur's a better coach. Dable and the Giants. Dable's a better coach. Every coach they're going to go up against is going to be better than the one they have. It's not acceptable. And enough is enough. And back then, I would be a little bit lenient, and I wouldn't as much because I've always been a big Dennis Allen critic. But I said, you know what? His side of the ball is okay. Now his side of the ball is the problem. So now what? He's not a good leader. He looks like a fucking clueless moron on the sideline, and his defense can't do shit right now. They don't get after the quarterback. They don't stop the run. They don't stop the pass. What do they do well? The answer is absolutely nothing. So I ask the Saints, what value does Dennis Allen hold to them right now? The answer is absolutely zero value. He is hurting the team. And now we've wasted another year to find out what we already know. Dennis Allen can't coach to save his fucking life. That's the reality. He's not a defensive genius. He's just a guy that's in over his head. That's what he is. And I know it's not going to happen. I'm not going to wake up Monday morning and see Dennis Allen's been fired. That'd be the greatest Monday of my life. It's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen. But enough is enough. We cannot, as fans, be forced to watch the same old shit. They lose the same way now, every week. It's so frustrating. It's so incredibly frustrating. But here we are. And we'll be subject to it for another Thursday game. And how poetic would it be if the nail in the coffin is Sean Payton coming in Thursday night with the rookie quarterback and just doing, nasty work to this Dennis Allen defense. Got beat by Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster last week. This week, it's every single player on the Buccaneers outside of Mike Evans had a field day. They could have pulled fans from the stands, put them behind that Tampa Bay O-line, and they would have ran for 7 yards a carry. That's the way it looked like today. And we're absolutely stuck with this just shit show of a coaching staff at this point with Dennis Allen. And it is incredibly, incredibly frustrating. So before I get into more about whether or not the Saints will make the change, if they make the change, who should replace Dennis Allen, I want to get a quick word from one of our sponsors, Scott McNair.
And Jonathan Williams brings it all the way back from the 20-yard line.
What a terrific way to end the first half.
And tonight's game is brought to you by Scott Vicnair Injury Attorneys. They always fight for the win.
You mean attorney? It's one lawyer. Scott Vicnair?
No, there's two.
Brad Scott and David Vicnair.
Well, it's confusing.
That it is. They could have picked a better name.
Scott McNair, Injury Attorneys, we fight for the win.
Once again, thank you to Scott McNair for being part of the program. We greatly appreciate it. So I just kind of, vented about how I feel Dennis Allen should get fired. The question becomes, if they do it, when should they do it? They're not doing it this week. That is a no-brainer here. They're not going to fire him when they have a short week coming up against Denver. It's not going to happen. Now, we all wanted to. It's not going to happen. So when does it happen? They lose on Thursday night. I think if it happens in the same fashion, there will be strong consideration. I know the Saints don't fire coaches midseason. I know that, and I understand that. But if they lose to Denver and they go from 2-0 to 2-5, and it's the fourth quarter, and there's not a single fan in the stands because they all left because the game turned into a blowout because his team got embarrassed yet again, as a business, because this is what the NFL is, a business, they will not stand for that. The Saints will not stand for this. So I think that's where we can get into that moment where they could make a change. But we'll see. Now, if let's say they lose to the Broncos, they don't fire him after that, you got Chargers, Panthers, Falcons, Browns before you get into that bye week. Maybe they just ride it out till you get to the bye. But at some point, they're going to have to make a decision in the next 4 games, I believe, whether or not they're going to fire him or not. They either turn this thing around slightly and make it a little less ugly than it is right now, which is going to be probably not that hard to do because it's tough to get uglier than it is right now. But they're going to have to make a decision because I think guys are quitting out there. I'm sorry. I think they do. They're sitting out there trying to force fumbles on throws into the flat instead of just making a damn tackle. And that's the second week in a row that it's happened. So if they lose Thursday, I think it will snowball. I really do. Thursday is the season. It is the season from the sense of if they drop that one, they go to 2-5. Everyone who sat there going, oh, I want them to tank and get a high pick, congrats, you're going to get what you want if this goes to 2-5 and it continues to spiral out of control. It will get ugly. Guys will quit. Thursday is going to be the season. So no, the Saints are not going to make a change Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, though, is going to be the moment that defines this year. Because if they lose that Thursday game, that gives the Saints a 3-week window where they're going to have to start talking in that front office and go, well, when do we make this change? Because fans will not go to the games. Opposing teams will take over the Superdome just like they did last year. And we're going to have to relive the same exact situation, except this time, you know how Zack Snyder gets the stupid Snyder cut that's like 6 hours long? This is going to be it. Last year, it was like 2-3 games where the Saints had to worry about this. If it continues, they're going to have to do about 2 months of the opposing team taking over the dome. So when should they make the change? I say you lose Thursday night, you fire him Friday morning. That's how I feel about this. If I'm just taking off my biased opinion, I'm trying to be neutral right now. If the Saints lose to the Broncos on Thursday and it looks ugly again and they can't stop the run and it looks like guys are quitting, you have to fire Dennis Allen. I think he should get fired right now, but that's me being a subjective fan who really doesn't like Dennis Allen. Now I'm going to pull the curtain back, be fair about it. If you fall to 2-5 and the coach who was in there before you embarrasses your team on prime time, when Denver doesn't have that great of a roster, I know their defense is balling this year, but that roster offensively does not have a lot of playmakers. There is a problem, and there will be a price that needs to be paid, and that price that needs to be paid will be Dennis Allen's job. So that's when I think the change will be made if you're New Orleans. So I'm going to get into what you guys have to say. I've been rambling like an absolute moron for the last 13 minutes, so I want to get it to you guys. Before I do that, though, I want to get a quick word from one of our sponsors, Sunshine.
It's rare to find someone you can count on when it's go time. It's even more rare to find someone you can count on, well, all the time. At Sunshine, we're proud to offer the John Deere equipment you need and a team you can depend on and off the field. Learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
Once again, thank you to Sunshine. And that brings us to our fan Q&A presented by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer. We're going to start off with the super chats, and then we'll get into everyone else's comments. We'll go with Joby here says, DA is a defensive coach. Fire him yesterday. First off, thank you for the support. Second, absolutely agree. You can't be a defensive coach and your defense be god-awful. You just can't, you know? It's unacceptable. Half-Life with the super chat says, the amount of missed tackles was mind-blowing. Yeah, I don't... Part of it is discipline. Part of it is them not, executing. Late in the game, that felt like guys quitting. But the worst display of tackling happened when the Saints were winning. They were up 27-24. Ball gets thrown in the flats to Chris Godwin. And Alontae Taylor, Paulson Debo, and Willie Gay, those were the three leaders of that one that all missed an important tackle. And what really frustrated me is on that particular play, they're all kind of throwing their fist at the ball. And I get it. Trying to force turnovers, it can be contagious. You want to make the big play. I understand that, but you got to know when to pull that back and not do that and just make a simple tackle. And in that particular situation, the Saints could not make a simple tackle. They decided to try and go for the ball, and it cost them dearly. And that was incredibly frustrating because instead of being up, all of a sudden you're down. And guess what? The Saints never scored again after that. So that's kind of all she wrote on that one. Blair with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Says they've given up on DA. Players know when you play for an awful coach. Yeah, and I would say last year there was a moment where everyone's like, oh man, are they all going to quit on DA? Is this over? And the Saints rallied. This year, with all the injuries that are piling up, I think that's where you'll see the biggest difference. I think the Saints don't want to quit on DA because I do think some guys like him. That said, they don't have the dogs out there right now. And when you don't have those type of guys out there that can really impose their will and games start getting out of hand, I think it's only just, natural of us humans to kind of check out a little bit. And I think we are going to reach that point if they lose Thursday. I just can't see how this team is going to be able to go back to work week in, week out when you started off 2-0, feeling really good about your chances to make the playoffs, and then all of a sudden you're 2-5? No way. Even now, it's got to be tough to go into the building. You were 2-0 going into an Eagles game where they put you on as the game of the week. You're starting to get some love. Everyone's paying attention, and now you are 2-4. Things change quickly in the NFL, and I get that. They should never change that quickly. The Saints should not be going from blowing out the Cowboys in week 2 to getting blown out by the Buccaneers in week 6. It should not have changed that quickly, and yet it did, and it's incredibly frustrating. Incredibly frustrating. Got a $10 super chat here from Carl Marky Marks. Thank you so much for the support. Says, this is all Loomis's fault. DA didn't promote himself or trade away draft picks for magic beans or extend contracts for players that should be in a retirement home. Sadly, he's not going anywhere. I do think there is a lot of blame that falls up top. And I actually think that's where a lot of the blame is at this point, because when you know Dennis Allen isn't good, Dennis Allen's not going to walk into the front office and be like, hey, guys, I'm not good at this job. I'm going to step down. No, the man gets paid to be a head coach. He's going to keep showing up and doing what he gets paid to do. The Saints are going to have to make that decision. And I understand why they kept trying to push the issue. At first, they wanted to keep the culture from the Sean Payton year, but that didn't work. So then they wanted a different quarterback. So they got in Carr, but that didn't work. And then it was Pete Carmichael's fault. So they brought in Clint Kubiak. And yes, it did work the first 2 weeks, and it was great. And this isn't for me to say that Clint Kubiak's not good. I do think Clint Kubiak struggles at times, is a little inconsistent, and doesn't make enough adjustments. But I don't view Clint Kubiak as a problem at the moment. But shit's not working. And now DA's side of the ball that he's supposed to master isn't. So Loomis is going to have to make a decision. Because at the end of the day, it falls on his shoulders. He's the guy who calls the shots. So does he want to keep running this back and getting us to the point where Saints fans just completely kind of check out? I think it would be so frustrating if a fan base as great as the Who Dat Nation all of a sudden is detached from the team because they just don't want to move off of a coach who's just frankly not that good. And I do agree with you. Like, at some point, the guy who makes the decisions has to be the one to blame. So Dennis Allen is quickly, not only is he the problem, he's a symptom of an even bigger problem. And I think that is the concern to your point. Got a $5 super chat from Markel. Thank you so much for the support. Says, if we get a high draft pick, who will we even draft? We have so many holes in this roster, and it's not like front office has been drafting well anyway. I'm going to be honest. It depends. And I know this might seem like, oh, this is such a basic take, Chris. I would take Travis Hunter if they can get him. If they're picking top 5 and they get Travis Hunter, I want Travis Hunter. You know why? The Saints need talent either side of the ball. I don't care whether it's offense or defense. They need talent. So that would be a guy that I'd look at. You could say they have to get better in the trenches, and I understand that. But at what point do we blame the Saints and be like, you know what? You got to stop exhausting these picks in the trenches. You have to. So, look, I would love Travis Hunter. I don't think they're going to be able to get him. I know that people are going to want, and I don't think this is going to happen, but I know people are going to want Ashton Genty. I don't think you go running back that early. I think that's how you set yourself up for disappointment. I know McMillan from Arizona is another weapon that would be interesting to watch in this offense. Maybe you could look at him depending on where you're picking. I know people are going to say O-line, and I get it, whether it's Will Campbell or Emory Jones, especially Campbell, but I can't see the Saints going O-line again in the first round. I just can't. And right now, the problem is they don't have the interior of their O-line. McCoy went down and everything went to shit. So I don't know if that's the fix anyway, grabbing another tackle. But I think this team needs talent. But how do you trust them, right? They wasted a lot of picks on defensive linemen. They've wasted picks on offensive linemen. It's very hard to trust this team right now. Incredibly hard. So let's get into all your comments here, and let's go through them. Jake says, fire Dennis Allen into the fucking sun. Yeah, I wish. If I could, I would, man. If I could, I would. Pottyman27 says, DA has been saying tackling is an emphasis at practice for how many weeks now? Defense can't tackle. Wide receivers can't catch the ball. O-line can't block. What did we do to deserve this? I ask myself that question every single time I turn on a Saints game, man. What did we do to deserve watching this freaking shit show every week? Camp Kiz says, worst game under DA, period. Yeah, I think this was the most embarrassing game. I tweeted it and I was wrong. I was like, the Saints just don't get blown out under Dennis Allen. They started off down 17, and they made a run. I'm like, you know what? This team shows a lot of heart when they're down. Yeah, stupid of me. They gave up 27 unanswered. Way too many of Drew Brees' teammates on the defense. If you know, you know. Very old. Yeah, the age is catching up. They have an older player at every level of the defense. And at some point, your time is up. Julia says fire Loomis and DA. That's going to be a popular one. Loomis isn't going to go anywhere. We all kind of know that. DA's got to go now. At least fix one of the problems. We know the other one's like not going to be changed, but this one's got to change. Forgive says, I think there's a high % chance they fire him right now. I don't know, man. I'm kind of on the fence there. Got a $5 super chat from Dan. Thank you so much for the support, Daniel. He says, Sean Payton beating us next week is going to be sickening, but if it finally gets DA gone, then so be it. Yeah, I've always said I'm never going to be in a position where I root against the Saints. I just can't do it. When I watch a Saints game, I'm watching to see if the Saints can win. So I can't watch this one and be like, oh, I hope they lose. I can't. That said, if Sean Payton comes into the Dome and leads the Broncos to win over the Saints, and that is the one, that's the straw that broke the camel's back, and Dennis Allen's out of here, then fine. Then Sean becomes an even greater figure in New Orleans, if that's what happens, What that for me is what I can live with. But obviously the objective and my fandom going into that game is the Saints better beat the Broncos. But it could turn south quickly. We all know that. Michael says, why was everything hung on Rattler? No run game. Yeah, I mean, if you're Tampa Bay, isn't that kind of obvious? You're going to try and stop the run. You're trying to make sure that everything's on the rookie quarterback. And I get that. I totally understand it. But I think that a lot of it too for the Saints is they just don't get the interior push right now, because this wasn't just a one-game sample size where they didn't have the run. Didn't have the run last week against Kansas City. Didn't run the ball like all that great against Atlanta when they needed to. Against Philly, it was a struggle. Their run game just hasn't been good ever since they've lost Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz. And part of that absolutely makes sense. Like McCoy, I've always said he's the glue that holds the interior of the O-line together. But it is pretty frustrating that you couldn't get your rookie quarterback any help, in the second half. It was pretty much just Spencer out there pressing, and, shocker, rookie quarterback starts pressing and he makes some mistakes. I mean, that we all definitely saw coming. Fred says, rookie QB making his first start, and you're supposed to be a defensive head coach. You give up 51. Fuck Dennis Allen. Forgive says the team gave up on him. Fred says, if it wasn't for garbage time interception, we would have won the turnover battle while getting absolutely blown out. Yeah, at one point, they were winning the turnover battle. They had a special teams touchdown, and they were getting their asses absolutely kicked at home. That doesn't make sense. And the only way that makes sense is if your defense can't stop a nosebleed, and that is the case right now with the New Orleans Saints. And because they can't stop a nosebleed, and this is becoming a legitimate problem every week they play, the Saints are going to lose the time of possession battle every single week. So your defense is not only going to be washed up, your defense is going to be incredibly gassed. And that is the worst combination to have in the world. Trey Gift says, DA brings absolutely nothing to the table in 2024. He needs to be fired yesterday. Yeah, that's going to be a popular one. I agree with it, Camp Kids says, can't be mad at the offense. We're hurt in the trenches and with playmakers, plus rookie QB first start. I'm not mad at the offense at this point because the offense is what the offense is. They're banged up and they don't have playmakers. And even when they're healthy, they don't have a lot of playmakers. So my frustration is that the Saints saw this position, these skilled players, and said, yep, this is enough. That to me is crazy. Joshua says they won't fire him. This organization is known for waiting till the season's over to do anything. Yes, I do think that's going to change this year if this keeps up. I really do. Boston says it's time to fire DA. I agree. Is it Tariq? If I got it wrong, I apologize. Or Tarek? I don't know. I don't know if DA can make it through a Sean Payton loss. I agree with you. If they lose by 14, right, and the dome's emptying out, I think it's over. I mean, it really is over at this point anyway. You're kind of just delaying the inevitable here. Jacob says, if I was as bad at my job as Dennis Allen is at his, I wouldn't have one. The day he gets fired, I'm going to cry tears of joy. I promise you, the day he gets fired, we are hopping on a live stream, and every single comment that gets put is going to be on the screen, and we'll have a celebration. We'll pop some bottles because I can't do this Dennis Allen shit anymore. He just takes all the fun out of football, and I don't know how he does it, but congrats to him. He is to football as Toby is to Michael Scott. That's what Dennis Allen is. It's so freaking boring, and he's so annoying with the same old shit. They got to clean this up. They can't keep doing that. Got to fix that. You're the head coach, dude. Figure it out. Figure it out, man. Next up, Trey Gibbs says, positive note, Spencer played good and brought an energy to the team that was exciting to watch. I mean, I thought he played inconsistent. Was exciting to watch, though. I will give you that. Forgive says, I was happy when the Bucs scored to get 50. That should be the stamp on DA as the head coach of this team. Yeah, I mean, at that point, you kind of want them, when you're getting embarrassed like that, you want the team to keep kicking their teeth in. I'm not going to root against the Saints, but you want them to keep getting their teeth kicked in so you could start asking the question of when is enough enough? Now, I think we've reached that point, but the Saints clearly don't feel that way. So I bring it again to them. When is enough enough? And when are you going to make this change? Got a super chat here from Justin to get me cash. Thank you so much for the support. Says, hope Sean Payton ends our pain Thursday. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people rooting for Sean Payton Thursday. Now, I told you my stance. I will not be rooting against the Saints, ever. It just won't happen. It will not happen. But there will be people rooting for Sean Payton on Thursday, and I understand why. I don't agree with it, but I understand why. And I do think this would be the second greatest thing he's done outside of winning a Super Bowl in New Orleans is if he blows out the Saints and gets Dennis Allen fired. That's what people will think. Again, I'm not rooting for that. I don't want that. But people would be pretty pumped about that. Hope we lose every game until DA is fired. Defense has been overrated for years. Like you said, our last meaningful defense game was Tampa when Jameis got hurt. Yeah, the Tampa game with the PJ Williams pick six was the last time this defense, in my opinion, did anything worth bragging about. Just in my opinion. Trey Gibbs says he should have been fired after apologizing to the Falcons. Yeah, I felt that way too. Only Dennis Allen can have a blowout victory and fuck it up by apologizing to your biggest rival. And yet they brought him back. Time to start the rebuild with Rattler and the good young players we have. The old guys like DeMario, Cam, Honey Badger aren't doing anything impactful. I thought Honey Badger was playing well at the start of the season, but he's got a lot of injuries mounting up now. He's got the heel, and I think today was an arm injury maybe. I got to go check the injury report again, but frustrating because he's played really well when healthy, and it's unfortunate. DeMario finally looks a step too slow, and Cam, I know he had the interception today, but Cam's just kind of out there to hopefully play good run defense, but the run defense is terrible, so clearly that's not working either, you know? Eddie Kings 21 says, let's tank now, start the rebuild. Ed says, LOL, this is going to be fun. Robert Saleh got fired, and the Jets have a top 5 defense. What's the Saints' excuse? This franchise has been pathetic, minus the 15 years Breeze was here. Ain't that the truth? Justin Watson says, 0-4 since DA said we got to pop out and show them. We're certainly showing who this team and coach really are. Kenneth says, if we lose next week, DA's got to go, right? In parentheses, my mental health is suffering. I hope so, man. I hope so. I don't think Saints fans, can do another year of this, man. I don't think they can. Got another super chat here from Justin to get me cash. Says, bring me Ben Johnson. That will definitely be one of the popular picks. And I think getting a guy like Ben Johnson would be really interesting. I spoke actually to David Montgomery of the Lions last week, and I was asking him, we talk so much about Dan Campbell because Dan Campbell's, obviously, besides outside of being the head coach and you get the spotlight on you, Dan Campbell was such a charismatic guy. And I said, Ben Johnson always gets hyped up, but we don't know what type of guy he is. What is he like behind the scenes? And he said, there is no bigger perfectionist behind the scenes. And when it comes to being serious and making sure you get your shit done, Ben Johnson is very, very strict like that. He says maybe once a week you'll get him to crack a smile, and that's about it. Now, does that mean the Saints should hire him because of that story? No. Do I think the Saints should consider him once they get rid of Dennis Allen? Absolutely. The problem is I don't think the Saints are an attractive job right now. And I hate saying that, but that's the truth. What about this team, if you're a coaching candidate, really, really sticks out to you? Defense is getting old. Their best offensive player could be out of here if they don't sign him to an extension. Olave is a good player. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of concussions now, and we're going to have to start talking about that at some point. Don't have your quarterback of the future for sure. Maybe Spencer becomes that, but you don't know if you have that for sure. Your cap situation is not great. It's tough. It really is tough. So we'll see what happens. Tobias says NFL teams are supposed to get a little better as the season progresses, but this team is getting worse. Yeah, worse and worse and worse. Tyler says, this season's cooked. I like what I saw from Rattler, and he looked good outside of that second pick. He will continue to get better with more reps. DA's got to go, and Kubiak should be interim head coach. I said it, and I'll say it again, guys. I think if they fire Dennis Allen, I think they will make Darren Rizzi the interim coach. I don't think they will make Clint Kubiak the interim coach. I could be dead wrong on that. I just think Rizzi is a better leader, and I think the team will probably gravitate towards him a little bit more. Plus, his side of the ball, at least today, was good. I mean, I thought Matthew Hayball punted the ball excellently, and Rashid Shaheed had that punt return touchdown that kind of flipped the game and momentum in their favor. They just couldn't do anything about it after that. So we'll see. But I think it would probably be Rizzi if I had to guess. Forgive says Rattler threw 2 picks, but he's just a rookie trying to get the team back in the game. This game is all on DA, no one else. Yeah, I mean, if you're throwing this game on Rattler, it's just as unfair as throwing last week's game on Derek Carr, which I said Derek Carr didn't play well against the Chiefs. But if you think he is the main problem, you're ignoring the huge problem, which is coaching being bad. Rattler's first pick was the right read, a bad throw. The second pick was a bad read and a bad throw. That's the one you're trying to get rid of. The one to Shaheed, you're just trying to get a better throw on that ball, a little bit more air on it, probably complete like a 40-yard pass, which would be great. But I think for the Saints, you can't really take anything from this game. The first half, like, he looked comfortable, which is great. And he can move and throw on the run. And those are things that you could take into your game plan moving forward. But nothing in the second half. Like, O-line wasn't great. He was getting confused by what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are putting up front. And they don't have the playmakers to kind of go out there and make life easier for him. So that doesn't help either. Margaret says, anyone that thinks this team will do anything this year, they're delusional. Our defense is annihilated, plus too old. Let's get rid of Carr and Allen and start new. It might be painful. I mean, it will be painful. It will. I mean, it could always get worse. That's what I always tell people. Like, when you think that things can't get worse in the NFL, you got to remember it's the NFL and they absolutely can get worse. I mean, I've seen teams, like, think about the Jets. Jets is the first year they have some optimism, and it feels like their season, if they lose Monday, is already over. Jaguars, they felt like after making the playoffs with Doug Peterson, they turned the corner from tanking and all that, and now they're the worst team in the league. So it could always get worse in the NFL, but I do agree, like, it is time for this team to accept that their heyday is long gone, and either they accept the reality and start moving off some of these old players and bringing in younger guys and start valuing the draft and making sure they don't whiff on their draft picks. They're not going to get any better. They got to clean that up. Austin says Loomis and DA probably chewing sugar-free gum. Black Arsenal 300 says, I called it. I had no faith in DA winning a close game. Ended up being run out of our dome. Weedat 24 says DA fired tomorrow. Dom Lewis says, if DA isn't let go, then upper management needs to be investigated because that was a complete embarrassment. Can't disagree, man. I agree with all of you. I just want to say, and I'm going to try to get through every single comment here, but I just want to throw that out here again. Anyone saying DA should be fired, you will not get anything from me that says, oh, I don't agree with that take. No, I 1000% agree with that take. C-Step 100 says he should be fired. Fuck a hot seat. I agree. I don't even think you can get to the hot seat conversation. It's just enough's enough. Like 26-50 is his record. 26-50. Joseph says, as someone whose mental health relies heavily on his sports team, Dennis Allen is making me very depressed. First off, Joseph, I'm sorry about that. I wish it's as easy as telling you don't let the Saints dictate your mood, but I get it. I get it. Football's important. We only get it for 17 weeks in the year, so I understand it. And it's really only 17 days. It's not like the full week. You only get that 1 3-hour moment of where the game actually is taking place. But yeah, I understand it. I hope they can turn it around for your sake, for all our sake, but it's not looking too pretty. HCats123 says, I will say in this shit sandwich, I thought Rattler made the best of that situation for rookie. I hope this game doesn't crush him too bad. I don't think he will. And if it does, then you're not an NFL quarterback, right? You're not able to handle, or at least a starting quarterback, you're not able to handle the ups and downs. What I will say for Spencer is he needs a longer runway for us to even make a conclusion as to what he is. Now, if he starts playing really good football, I think you should keep him out there. Because the worst thing you can do is have a lost season where you didn't get a full evaluation of this kid. That would be the worst thing you can do. Ed says, DA is going to say, I thought we played well. Yeah, I bet he will. I bet he will. Rubber Johnny says, I can hear Mickey Loomis smacking his gum right now. Tyler says, over 1,000 total yards allowed in the last 2 games. This defense visually quit on DA today. Yeah, it feels that way. KT with the super chat. Thank you so much for the support, KT. Really appreciate that. Justin Get Me Cash for the $5 super chat says Saints need to blow it up and trade some of the vets for picks and rebuild ASAP. Yeah, I'm going to agree with all you guys. Look, for me, okay, rebuilding stinks. But the worst thing the Saints can do is start prolonging this. That's why I keep telling her, I love the idea, in theory, of Devontae Adams, Chris Olave, and Rashid Shaheed as a wide receiver trio. That sounds awesome. But the last thing this team should do is A, give up picks, and B, screw up their cap situation. They got to get back to being financially responsible. And they tried that this offseason, and I commend them for that. They can't go back on that now. Accept what you are. You are a bad football team. You are a football team that is declining, not ascending. And you got to get your books straight in terms of the financial records. But you got to start drafting well, too. That is the biggest problem for the Saints right now. They have not drafted well enough. That is a problem. Rolly says, don't think I've hated a man more than I do Dennis Allen. I appreciate that. And I feel you on that. I'm getting there. Pablo says, I'm optimistic of what Rattler can be under offensive head coach, but I don't know how we can justify Dennis staying. He is a defensive coach whose defense sucks, is inconsistent, and lacks fundamentals. Amen to that. Austin says, fire Gale, fire Loomis, fire DA. Is it crazy to think every level of management for the Saints is completely delusional? No. I agree with you. Tobias says, what's crazy is how for the past 4 weeks, something happened at the beginning of the game when the Saints get the ball and you just know they're about to lose it. Oh, well, like the fumble return for a touchdown. I mean, they started down 14-0, 17-0 if you add on the field goal. Got a super chat here from Jay Rambo. Thank you so much for the support. Says, can we get a petition started to get Miss Benson to sell the team? Only maybe then we'll see significant change within the organization and team. I mean, I don't think that'll ever work. I understand the sentiment, and I do think the Saints are way too content with their current situation. So I agree with you. It was a great comment. I mean, I would be for it. I would be for it, but I don't see how you're going to get an owner out of there, especially an owner who's been here for so long and is for the most part well respected. But I think the Saints have the vibe of a team that feels like they've won a lot and they can just relax and just kind of cash their checks. And I get it from the business aspect. They'll be able to cash their checks. But if they're, genuinely content with the product that's on the field, then that's really, really fucked up. It's fucked up to us fans. And I don't know how much longer you can put such a passionate fan base through the same level of mediocrity, because that's what the Saints are right now. They're not bad enough to get the number 1 pick. They're not good enough to be contending in the playoffs. So they're kind of just like in that area where you're floating between pick 11 and pick 15, and you're just frustrating, man. Got a super chat here from Midlife Tyson. Says, yo, I missed the Rattler grade. Give a quick rundown. So for me, I said somewhere in the C, right? I think C+ is probably where I go. Maybe a C if I'm being harsh, but C+ I'll probably go with. I thought he looked really good on the run. I thought, rollouts, getting him out of the pocket on different platforms to throw from, he excelled very well. Looked so comfortable doing it. Now, his first pick, great read, bad throw. So I think for those, you live with it and you just wanted to make a better throw, but you're glad that he went to push it and he made the right read. Second one, I think was him just pressing and just makes a horrible read. Shouldn't have made that throw. And it's unfortunate. The key that you want is next time he gets into that situation, you don't want him to force the issue. That said, when everything's going to shit, I understand where a rookie quarterback probably feels like they have to play hero ball. So I don't want to be too harsh on Spencer. I think he did just as much good as he did poor. Maybe the one knock on him that he's going to have to figure out if he's going to be a high-level quarterback in this league is reading defenses. Because I think in terms of protection, Saints were off. And again, credit to Todd Bowles. He made the right adjustments to confuse a rookie quarterback. So he deserves all the credit for that. But I do think that the Saints are going to have to figure that part out to Spencer Rattler. And if he can't, then maybe he won't be the guy. But overall, I go C+. I think he did a lot of good, which is always great to see. Blair with a super chat says, DA takes the fun out of football seasons, and I couldn't agree more. Saints games feel like a chore sometimes with Dennis Allen, and it should never feel like a chore. It should never feel like this, but this is what he's done to our team. And I don't know when he's going to get it turned around. I'd like to think that, the Saints can get back in the win column Thursday, and maybe that'll give them some life. But I just truthfully don't feel that way. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think they're kind of just, I said before, they feel like a car that's stuck in neutral at the top of a hill. You're going to start falling back. And that's kind of what's happened with them. Get into more comments here. Let's see what we got. Tobias says, what's crazy is how for the past 4 weeks, something happens. Oh, wait, no, we saw that one. Ryan says, everyone just stop kidding themselves. The only thing that will get us back to anything close to the Breeze days will be a complete rebuild, top to bottom, likely including management. Ryan, you're not wrong, but they got to start somewhere. And firing Dennis Allen will be the first start, but they got to start somewhere. Dom says, Rattler was doing a good job. Tampa made the adjustments and forced Clint's hand. Don't disagree with that. Jamie says, oh, when the Aints come marching in. Oh, when the Aints come marching in. Bucks own you clowns. Usually I would get really not annoyed, but I'd be like, why can't you go find a Buccaneers live stream to go celebrate? In this particular case, I don't care. Whatever. Bucks won. They blew out the Saints. They can do their thing. T-Ray says, the defense straight up quit today. There is no world where Dennis Allen should remain employed. He should be fired by the morning. Rattler looks good. More reps and game experience. He'll be good. Doozy says, my hope is that this culture of the team doesn't crush the spirit of the younger guys. I think they'll be kind of rejuvenated with a different coach. Rachel says, what happened? We were playing good at first half. Yeah, defense imploded, offense imploded, everything imploded. Jack says, can't be too hard on Rattler without Olave and against Tobol's defense. Yeah, I'm not going to be hard on him, I can't. Joseph says, Kubiak needs to be better at adjusting to stuff in game. He's terrible at it. Yeah. Eddie King says, can our defense stop thinking they're the Legion of Boom and trying to hit stick everyone, just make the tackle? Trying to rip the ball out nonstop was getting really frustrating. Just make a damn tackle, and they were unable to do that. Got another super chat here from Midlife Tyson says, run defense and O-line ass Spencer looked great. Run defense, terrible. O-line, every time Bowles blitzed, and part of it is protection issues and quarterback not reading it right, obviously, looked like a mess. Spencer, I don't know if great's the right word. What I will say for Spencer Rattler, though, I didn't see compare Spencer Rattler's debut with, let's say, Ian Book's debut. Ian Book's, you're like, this guy does not look ready for the moment. In Rattler's situation, you feel like he was ready for the moment. When things started going out of his way a little bit, pressed, and that happens. But I didn't get the read today that Rattler can't be an NFL quarterback. I did not get that feel. He made some mistakes, but I still want to see him for another 2-3 games until Carr comes back. And now if he plays well, then I think you keep him in there. But I want to see more to get a better idea of what he can be with having a longer leash and knowing that mistakes aren't going to cost you, at least cost you your job for the immediate future. Got a $5 super chat here from Milton. Thank you so much for the support. Says, this team has zero discipline. Allen said we have faith in our guys, but it's clear they have no faith or any respect for him. I mean, I think the faith is definitely declining. I mean, you go from 2-0 to 2-4, and you start getting run on. And by the way, every team now that's going to play the Saints, that's going to be their message, right? In team meetings and preparing for this you got to play smash mouth style football, because eventually it's that deep run defense is going to leak. It's going to leak. And we're seeing it week after week after week. And it's really, really frustrating. And I think the discipline part is a fair thing. I think the bigger problem right now is them just not being physical enough. I think that's the problem. Discipline, honestly, I thought the Buccaneers were more undisciplined today if we're like picking who was more undisciplined. But this team does not have enough fight, and that is really, really frustrating. That's where I get really disgusted by this team. Jamal says, dude was impressive despite no reps with the ones. He hadn't had time to work with the guys' timing / chemistry. More reps and time, he'll play a lot more. I mean, I hope that's the case. I want to see Spencer Rattler play more. And I hope for anyone who might be, why'd you give him like a C+ as your grade or whatever? Like, that's harsh. No, I think it's fair. Rattler made some mistakes today, missed some reads, had Holker open for a touchdown. I think he missed another one on that same exact drive, and they ended up settling for 3. So, like, that you want to clean up. But, yeah, the kid needs more time. One game is not enough to say whether he's going to be good or going to be bad. Donald says, damn, we trash as fuck. It's tough. It's tough. Ryan says, Saints, the only team in the league that would come back from being down 17 in one quarter and find a way to lose the game. Forget about come back from 17 and find a way to lose the game. They come back from 17 in the same quarter, and then they give up 27 unanswered after they take the lead. Like, that to me is kind of crazy. Well, not 27 unanswered. 27 unanswered once it got to 27-24. Still nuts to me. JEH says, Kubiak, DA, and Loomis need to be gone after the loss to Sean on Thursday. I don't know if that's going to happen, man. Joseph says, only good thing about today is a new Penguin episode drops. I am very behind on that, guys. I apologize. I have to get on that. Forgive says, Sean Tucker had 7 rushing yards coming into this game, by the way. 190 for Sean, 170 for Dallas, 130 for Juju, and over 100 for Hunt. You're just handing out. You're handing out 100-yard rushing games at this point if you're the Saints defense. Doesn't matter who's out there, you're going to get 100 yards. And I talked about this when they played the Chiefs. Kareem Hunt's last 100-yard rushing game was in 2020, and they gave over 100 rushing yards to him. Got another super chat here from Midlife Tyson. Thank you so much for the support. He says, a lot of starters out. Spencer looks promising. I think that is, I was going to say promising, encouraging, whatever word you want to use. I want to see more of Spencer Rattler, and that's a good thing. If he looked god-awful, I would come out here and be like, Derek Carr can't come back soon enough. I don't feel that way. Saints would have lost probably this game in a very similar manner with Derek Carr today, honestly, with the way that the Bucs were blitzing. So it is what it is. I hate saying that it is what it is, but this team has so many holes outside of the quarterback, To me, that's the problem. That really is the problem. Let's see. Student says, we will get the Broncos game. Go Saints. I mean, I hope so. Kyle says, routine extended losing streak for DA comes around like fall every year. It really does. It really does. DA has one job. Chris has 0. Buddy is jealous. I actually have 2 jobs, but DA does make more money than me, so kudos to him. He still sucks at his job. I might suck at my job too. T-Ray says Kubiak has to game plan for Rattler on blitzes because blitz gave him problems. Rattler had 4 days to prep, but did better than expected. Carr would have had 10 sacks and 5 interceptions. This game was about defense. Maybe a little hyperbolic towards the end with the numbers, but yes, I do agree. It is about the defense, right? You can get mad about whatever happened offensively, but at the end of the day, if you're giving up, what were the numbers that I pulled up before? 270 plus rushing yards, 8 yards a carry, and 594 yards of total offense. How are you going to win with who you have a quarterback, right? That's just not sustainable, man. Think free. For those who thought Spencer Rattler was the answer, got shot down, no offensive line, and weak defense. Jacob says, as a Bucs fan, I think Spencer had a very good game. He did get rattled at the end. He did. You could tell. And I think there were moments where he seemed really frustrated when it came to the blitzes and not knowing where the pressure was coming from. Kudos to Todd Bowles, by the way. I thought Todd Bowles, halftime adjustments, A+. Kudos to him. But yeah, some good and some bad. I think that's where we're at, Gio says, Saints can't tackle and can't block. It's not about the QB. 1,000% agree. Got a super chat from Richard Hill says, who will be your top 3 head coaching candidates as of today? I think Ben Johnson will obviously be up there. There's no doubt about that. I think Bobby Slowick's going to be up there with the way Houston's looked really well. And I mean, he was a top candidate last year. Slowick and Ben Johnson will be 2 of the top candidates. There's no doubt about that. I think for me, in terms of who else I would want, I don't know. I think we have to kind of let this season play out. I don't think I would want Kingsbury. Like, I know he's probably going to be mentioned again because, Washington's offense looked good, but I think that's Jaden Daniels doing more good than anyone else personally. So I would probably wait and see. That's where I'm at. I know it's not a fair answer, but I'm kind of in wait and see mode. I really, really like Ben Johnson. Obviously, I think, like I said, Bobby Slowick's got Houston cooking. So we'll see. And if they were to go defense, then I guess you want to throw in Mike Vrabel because I feel like Vrabel had a good run in Tennessee, fine. But if I'm the Saints, I'm going offensive-minded coach. I don't think you go back-to-back defensive coaches, so I'd probably keep it on the offensive side, Let's see what else we got in the chat. Casey says, Bucks putting up 50 points is all the evidence we needed that DA is not the answer. I mean, yeah, we already had enough evidence, but I agree. Fred says Kubiak has shown absolutely zero ability to make any in-game adjustments. Matter of fact, he's shown negative ability to make adjustments. Someone mentioned it, and whoever it was, I hate that I can't remember, but they talked about how defenses are going to be really aggressive towards the Saints because they know the O-line is really struggling. And now with a rookie quarterback, maybe protections might be even worse when you're calling it out. Kubiak has not really used that aggression from the defenses against them. And I don't know how much that's on Kubiak and how much is on the personnel being bad. So I really can't say for sure. But I do feel like I think that for the Saints, there's no screen game. And that's really frustrating because I remember a lot of us the last 10 years were so accustomed to Saints having a good screen game and they just don't have it. So it's really frustrating, but it is what it honestly, when it comes to the offense and their struggles and whether Kubiak's not adjusting, at some point, I don't think they're going to have the personnel to be able to move the ball anyway. I mean, think about it. This upcoming week against the Broncos, Bub Means is probably going to be your wide receiver too, which, by the way, I thought Bub Means had a nice, solid game. It was good to get some production out of him, but he shouldn't be your wide receiver too right now. There's just no way. Yahtzee says it's an unserious organization, and the only thing that'll resonate is if the fans just don't freaking show up. Yep. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. Kyle says, when is the bye week so we can get a win? The bye week is right before Thanksgiving. So I believe November 17th is their last game before the bye. So the November 24th, 23rd weekend, that's when Saints fans can relax and won't have to worry about it, What else do we have here? Tobias says, don't be surprised if Sean Payton drops 40 on us with the Broncos. I would be kind of surprised only because I don't think the Broncos have that type of firepower offensively. I know they're going to try to run the football well and limit mistakes for Bo Nix, but I don't think 40. I mean, if they put up 40, then the Saints are probably going to spot them some points with mistakes, whether it's on special teams or let's say Rattler has a pick or there's a fumble. I just don't know if 40 is sustainable. I get your point, though. I do think Denver will try, obviously, to come in here, come in with a plan, run the football well, and leave, New Orleans with a win on Thursday. But I don't see them getting blown out. That's just me. I just don't think there is enough firepower there. Michael says penalties, drop passes, missed tackles, and just generally not covering passes. I'm so done with the Saints. And D.A. Gabriel says Rattler started off impressive, but him getting shell shocked when the defense adjusted him is not a great sign. Obviously, he's young, but he looks like the same guy who got benched for Caleb. Again, one game in, I'm going to wait and see. I think you can find trends, though. But all I'm going to say is, just for like the patience part of it, is, and I'm not comparing it. It is funny that you mentioned Caleb Williams. I thought Caleb Williams looked really shaky the first couple of games of his career, and Caleb's really settling in nicely. I know that we're comparing a fifth round pick to the number 1 overall pick, and Caleb is much more talented, so I understand that. But just the sentiment when it comes to a rookie, Caleb Williams comes out looking flat, and all of a sudden the Bears have looked really good the last couple of weeks, and more importantly, Caleb's looked really good. Caleb was sensational against the Jaguars, so we'll see what happens, but you definitely want to see him get more, games under his belt and see if he can develop. Douglas says, fire Dennis Allen. Ed says the Jets don't fire coaches midseason, but they did what they had to do. Saints management needs to grow some balls. Gio says Rattler is not the future. Too Short says Kubiak didn't adjust after the first half. Sean Payton was a genius at adjusting. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with the comment, but two completely different ballparks, like Super Bowl winning coach and a guy who is trying to prove himself as an OC. But I do get your point, and you are right about that. And I think that's something the Saints have lacked this year is adjustments. There's just not a lot there. Elijah says, fire Dennis Allen, no passion, no drive. The defense was absolutely garbage. Donald says, we literally can't win a game if Taysom Hill does not play / finish. Kind of feels that way, man. Kind of feels that way, Too Short says, defense definitely has to tackle better. No doubt about that. Also says, I don't want anyone on the coaching staff to be the next head coach. Go out and hire someone else. Joseph says, I have tickets to the Chargers game and I don't even want to go anymore. I still think, that's an awesome stadium. I still think you'll be able to have a great time. So hopefully for your sake, that's kind of what happens, but I think you'll be able to have a good time. Ryan says, no, you fire him now. Why would we give him another shot against an inferior team? We probably still will lose. At least if we fire him, it lights a fire under the squad who's motivated to play. Look, I just think, for me, they're not going to fire him on a short week. Maybe if you lose to the Broncos and it's embarrassing, you got a longer runway to get to that next game on that following Sunday. But short week, they're not going to fire him. In my opinion, you can't blame it all on defense. And when the offense keeps getting 3 and outs, putting them on the field all the time, and they get tired. Also, they were responsible for 17 of the 27 points. Again, I'm not saying it's all on the defense. Offense is just not good, and I understand that. But like I said, 594 yards of total offense. Like, there's just no way to defend it, in my opinion. I just think it's indefensible. Troy says he should not be coaching that game on Thursday. Allen is a losing coach. Yeah, for sure. Look at his record. It's right there for all of us to see. Jose says he's not getting fired because he has an excuse with injuries and starting a rookie quarterback. So even if he loses on Thursday, he's probably going to stay the head coach. Probably. I turned off the game after that 3rd and 16 conversion. Can't get excited for a drive because I know we'll just get a penalty on either side regardless. But yeah, penalties towards the second half are killer. Saints had a moment where Rattler gets it to Juwan Johnson, big gain on 3rd down. You keep the chains moving. I think it was an illegal shift on Rashid Shaheed. Back it up 5 yards. Next play, you go nowhere. You punt it. Bucs go down the other way and score. And it's stuff like that will kill you. But the 3rd and longs that the Saints defense are giving up are very, very frustrating. Last week it was 2nd and 34, which then became 3rd and 22, and then they gave it up on 4th down 2 plays later. So quite frustrating. DeMar says Saints suck again. The whole damn team needs to go. Fans need to stop buying tickets to make management act. Well, look, the tickets are already purchased. They are what they are. The thing is, do we get to what happened last year, where the Lions were taking over and you just felt like the Saints fans were not in the building? And if that happens again, I think changes will be made. But they got some places, they got some steps to go before they get to that point. Carlton says we'll miss the playoffs again. Kind of feels that way. Brandon says, I wish Allen would just step down. Not going to happen, but I understand your thought and your wishes there. Michael says they scored 44 points, 17 unanswered. Definitely defense played a huge role today. Yeah, the biggest in the loss. If you had for picking sides here. Mo says that Godwin touchdown happened when the Saints still led 27-24. They quit on DA. It's evident on that play. I mean, that to me was an undisciplined play more than them quitting. But yeah, towards the end of the game, it did feel like guys were checking out. Donald says we haven't been terrible, but it really shows you how much better Breeze made the team as a whole. Yeah, when you have an elite quarterback, everything's just easier. Everything's easier, and a lot of your flaws get covered up. So, not that we needed to say this, but Drew Brees hit a lot of the Saints' problems, and now Drew also had a great coach, and the Saints had great players. It wasn't just Drew Brees out there. I totally get it. But, I think that for the Saints' sake here, even if they had a franchise quarterback right now, which it would make things a lot easier, there's so many other problems. And I think that's what's bothering me. Like, you have a CVS receipt worth of issues for the Saints. Their defense is getting old, and they can't stop the run. I think they got to get better at defensive tackle. They need to get better at defensive end. Linebacker, is Pete going to be able to be the guy after DeMario? Safeties, you need 2 safeties because Tyrann Mathieu's not going to play forever. And across from him, Jonathan Abram was terrible today. Will Harris obviously being banged up at the moment. Offensively, you need at least 1 more receiver. I would say you need 2. Your tight end room is not explosive, in my opinion. Running backs, outside of Alvin, what do you have? Like, you'd like to say, oh, Kendra Miller could help, but Kendra Miller hasn't played. So many issues for this team. Saint for Life says Denver's ranked number 3 defense. These guys are flying all over the place making plays. Bo Nix is making plays. This team is an elite, but they are a playoff team. They're ascending. They're absolutely ascending it. They went from 0-2 to 3-2, so they've kind of been a reverse of what the Saints have been, Jay Hoodie says the Saints should blow it up and trade Kamara where he wants to go. Nicholas says something is wrong with the medical staff. Players are constantly getting hurt. Everyone, we lose more and more to injuries. I'm not one of those people, one of those type of people that likes to blame the medical staff. I know a lot of people like to do it, but I am curious, right? Like, at what point is it a problem? Like, at what point is it a medical staff issue? I don't know. Like, I don't want to make any claims because I genuinely have no idea. But, like, the Saints suffer so many injuries year after year after year. So, well, we'll see. But I don't know. I wish I could tell you guys. Nicole says, I was there, Chris, and it was terrible. The players were dejected towards the end, and DA did nothing to build them up at all. He needs to go. Don't blame it. Cool that you went to the Rattlers' first game, though. The atmosphere seemed great at the start and then tailed off after. Donald says, Chris, I don't see us going O-line again. Mickey Loomis, hold my beer. We shall see. Gabriel says 3 trades will fix everything. Trade Derek Carr to the Browns to back up Bill Cosby light. Trade DA and Mickey Loomis for herpes and trade my life for the life of a Washington Commanders fan. It's a lot, man. That's a lot. There's a lot of demands out there. Sports Talk Live says, I feel like Rattler did all he could. Can't do much when you start off in a hole. I mean, but they climbed out of that hole. And then obviously put themselves in an even bigger hole. But they climbed out of the early 17-0 deficit. Got another super chat from Jay Rambo. Said Michael Thomas was right. About which one? Medical staff? I guess that's the point. And I at this point, it kind of feels that way, right? Kind of feels... I don't know anything about medical staff stuff. I don't know. And the Saints have tried. Like, they made different hires to try and improve this part, but they are getting so banged up that what is happening? Is it genuinely just the worst string of bad luck that we've seen in a long time for a football team? Or is something happening wrong in their process Monday through Friday that when Sunday comes around, injuries are happening? And it's not even Sunday. How many guys have been hurt in practice this year? Olave got hurt before the Falcons game. Pete Werner got hurt, I believe, before the Chiefs game. And these are supposed to be walkthroughs that guys are getting injured through. So, I mean, yeah, as we go on, it starts to feel like, Michael Thomas was right when it comes to blaming the medical staff, but still a lot to go and more information is going to have to come to light. But I wish I knew more about that, because I don't know what the logic is that every single week, at least 3-4 Saints players are getting hurt, and that injury report just keeps stacking up, Bayou Boys 504 says, Rattler missed a few wide open receivers. I know he's a rookie, but ... Yeah, the Holker miss was bad. I think that's the one that really, really pains you. And again, it doesn't change the whole outcome of the game, because when you get beat the way the Saints got beat in the second half, that one play is not going to change everything. But you'd love to see that. And I think for him, can he move outside of the pocket, get on the run while keeping his eyes downfield? I think a lot of quarterbacks do that well, but they're all the really good ones. Like Mahomes does that incredibly well. I would say that Josh Allen does that really well. Brock Purdy's done that incredibly well. Like, can you move on the run and keep those eyes downfield because you want to be a passer. Again, first start, I can't say that Rattler's not going to get better at that, but that's something I would like to see him improve at for sure. Carl says Sean Payton's also responsible for this mess. I mean, yeah, to some degree, absolutely. Absolutely. But he's not here, so it's tough to blame him. But yeah, I would say that. When you go all in so many times, you're going to be left like this, and it's going to be messy, and that's where the Saints are at. Sandra says, when was the last time someone scored over 50 points on us? Great question. Great question. When was the last time the Saints had, I want to say one of those really bad defenses, whether it was like 2012 or 2014, or I'm going to look around. It's let's see. First time since 2012 lost to the Giants. So there you go. That's not a good thing for the Saints. TJB says, I'm worried about Olave's health. Me too, man. Outside of the football aspect, right? Human being wise. That's a lot of concussions to suffer early in your career. And, you know, again, I'd imagine he'll be back in a couple weeks. He'll be playing again. And these guys love the game. But I get concerned about the human more than anything else. Like, we love him as a player, but damn, so many shots to the head. It is concerning. The Youngblood 46 says, Chris, if the Saints fired Dennis Allen, who would be the interim coach? Clint Kubiak, question mark. I think it would be Darren Rizzi. But again, that's just me speculating. I can't say for certain. Margaret says, where's Kendra Miller? God, just get rid of this guy. Yeah, he's healthy. Now, finally healthy, just not playing. I wonder if it's them feeling like there's no reason to keep him active on game day if he doesn't have a big role in the offense. And he won't have a big role in the offense till he gets more acclimated with everything and has more reps under his belt. But it's a lose-lose right now. Because I think they could use him in this offense. They don't have a lot of playmakers. I think you could take some pressure off of Alvin. But if they feel like he's not going to have an actual role, they don't want to dress him. I guess I understand it, but it's really frustrating. Timothy says Spencer had to play behind that horrible O-line. Not fair to the rookie. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things right now that are not fair for this team and for us fans. But I understand that. Michael says Rattler actually looked good. He can't win by himself. Yeah, no one can. You know? I cringe every time somebody says we have a good defense. They are horrible, old, and slow, and Chase Young was a waste of money. Yeah, Chase Young's not exactly doing much right now. Quite frustrating. I really thought he was going to be a nice addition to them, and I was dead wrong on that. Sean Payton is part of the reason he said your coach is in the building, so fuck him too, because it was a lazy hire after he convinced Loomis twice to hire Allen, and part of the reason for our cap space. Yeah, cap space for sure. Coach-wise, he could say whatever about having the guy in the building. The Saints still have to hire that guy. So that's where I ease off on that part. But I understand the frustration, for sure. Christina says, will DA be fired this season? I mean, I hope so. I think he will. I personally think he will because I don't think it's going to get much better for the Saints. I think at some point, you can understand injuries play a factor, right? I know that the Saints would be a better team if they had all their guys out there. And I acknowledge that. But you can only get embarrassed so many times before you say, you know what? Enough's enough. So for me, I do think he will get fired. The question is when, not if. And I think probably maybe in November, if I had to guess. I don't think right now. I don't know if they would do it after the Chargers game. If let's say they fall, then that'd be like 2-6. But I think maybe if his defense struggles against the Browns, which have been, I mean, that is the most depressing team to watch on Sundays, then that might be it, you know? Let's see what we have here. Gio says Rattler will be a good QB, but nothing special. I mean, we'll see. I think it's kind of early to say that. Sean says, if there's a guarantee that DA gets fired after a loss to Sean, then I say go Broncos because my blood pressure can't take this anymore. I respect the honesty there. Patrick says you pay Lattimore to play like trash. I mean, I don't know about that, but trash is harsh. And Lattimore wasn't the big issue today. There were other issues here, but I think they should consider trading Lattimore if the trade partner's out there. Just get a pick at this point. What is keeping him out there for? You can get Kool-Aid McKinstry on the field, see what he can do. You did draft him in the second round. You traded up to get him in the second round. And you can get some draft assets back. Not a lot, but something. So we'll see. Jerry G says, actually, I'm feeling good. I didn't lose any money, so all is well. That's what really matters, Jerry. So the priorities are straight. I salute that. Michael says Belichick would never coach the Aints. I don't think bringing in Belichick would be the answer, though, either. They can't keep going towards the old ways. They got to bring in some fresh, new ideas. T-Ray says Saints need to see if they can convince Bieniemy to consider. They shouldn't have let him leave the building, but it was a sham interview to hire DA. I don't know if Bieniemy's the answer either, though. And the reason I say this is the NFL, above all, wants the best guys because they're all about winning. That's why guys get second chances, even if they do something bad. And I think if Bieniemy was going to be head coach, I think someone would have hired him already, you know? Again, a better chance to go after him and give it a go than run another year with DA. So I understand that sentiment. But I think someone would have hired him already. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong and naive about that, but I don't think that would be the answer, you know? Austin says, I can't tell if Chase Young is genuinely slow or if he just takes terrible angles every game. Yeah, that's a good question. The angles aren't great either, though. The angles are very bad. I'm trying to remember which game he did it again. I think against the Eagles, he was not taking the proper angles against Jalen Hurts. You don't want to get so deep that Jalen Hurts is able to step up and just roll out, but that happened far too often. And it feels like he's always like a second away from making the big play, but he never actually makes the big play. He just continues to be seconds away. So that kind of stinks. Sandra says, should just cancel the press conference and play clips from all of the others because it's the same old shit regurgitated. Yep. I don't think Dennis Allen ever really says anything new. I think he just keeps saying the same old crap. So that is kind of where we're at. Derek says DA equals didn't adjust. Fair enough. And that's actually quite clever. Scoop Bundy says, I have us winning 2 more games on the remaining schedule. If they win only 2 more games, guys, it's going to get dark quick. 2 more games? I don't know. 2 more. I mean, the schedule's not that tough. Broncos, Chargers, Panthers, Falcons, Browns, Rams. I mean, Giants. Their schedule, strength of schedule-wise, is actually easy. The hardest team on their schedule remaining are the Packers in December 23rd. But I understand. How can you expect this team to win games right now? So I understand that. But yikes, like 2 more? That would be really, really rough. Israel said we just need to rebuild with a young team. I mean, we do. They definitely got to rebuild. But they got to really, really start nailing their draft picks. They got to have a draft class where you get 4, maybe 5 impact guys. And until you do that, you won't be able to get back there. And I think that's the big problem for them. A lot of missed draft picks that they've had. Think about 2 years ago. Like, you brought in Brian Brzee, great. Isaiah Foskey was your 2nd-round pick. He's giving you nothing. Kendra Miller was your 3rd-round pick. He's giving you nothing. Those are premium picks that those guys have to be playmakers. And if they're not, it's a real big problem. Our defense's age is showing. I said this last year and they laughed at me, but we have no depth nowhere on this roster. Their only real depth is like cornerback, but like cornerback, you're going to play 3 guys minimum on the field like at all times anyway, so that depth is going to be on display. It's not one of those where like a guy goes down and one fills in and you're fine. No depth at wide receiver, 0. No depth at running back. No depth at defensive end. No depth at defensive tackle. No depth at O-line. So the key stuff is really, really important. Josh the Great says C+ isn't bad. He looked promising. It's just the performance. Yeah, again, I want to see more of Spencer Rattler. I think that's a good thing. Had he been terrible, I wouldn't. Ian Book, after his Monday night start against the Dolphins, I did not want to see more of Ian Book. I could not wait until the Saints can go back to someone else playing quarterback. I did not want to see Ian Book out there. So that, to me, it was the biggest problem. Joe Cool says we're an embarrassment to the NFL. Michael says defense is a dumpster fire. Derek says not giving any excuses to this team. Jay Rambo says can't compare the gameplay of a rookie in their first start to 11-year vet who was making the same mistakes that the rookie's making. I saw a lot of comments similar to that, and I totally get that sentiment. Is it me, or does it seem like when DC starts to lose games, they sit him for injuries, then returns and plays well and keeps his job? Look, I understand why people said that last week, but oblique injuries are serious. So, he doesn't like to miss games. Now, you might say he might take himself out of games. Fine, whatever. But he does not like to miss games. So, clearly it is pretty serious. Brandon says, I want to wake up tomorrow morning and turn on ESPN and have breaking news that says the Saints have moved on from Dennis Allen. Don't we all? Don't we all? Sonic Boom says, Gail doesn't want to win. Mickey lines her pockets with cash and she's good. Mickey convinces fans that they are part of some nation and they fork over the dollars. I mean, understood. I don't think it's going to last long, though, at this rate. Like, I think we are getting to the point where Saints fans will check out. We're one, maybe two more losses away. It might have happened already. We'll see Thursday night. Prime time. What's that dome looking like? And Broncos fans they got a pretty good fan base, so we'll see how they travel. It's a short week. Maybe they don't travel as well, but Broncos fans have a pretty big group. Yahtzee says, screw Kingsbury. Give me Ben Johnson. I mean, yeah, out of the two, I'd rather. I've already seen Kingsbury as head coach. I don't kind of want to go back to seeing Kingsbury as head coach again. Michael says, everyone said Rattler is QB1. He is ready. Let him ball. What a joke. This kid sucks. Held ball and took 4 sacks throwing hospital balls. Sucks. I don't know. I mean, again, we need a larger sample size. Hospital ball? Fine. I'll give you that one. Fred says, I'm never a blame the refs type of guy, but that kill shot on Olave would have been called against the Saints. Also, what the fuck was with that non-offensive PI? Yeah, not sure. It's tough to blame the refs, though, when you get routed like that, but in those particular moments, they are pretty frustrating, for sure. Steven says, no, not medical staff as much as strength and conditioning, which reduces injuries. Yeah, so maybe that's the problem. Like I said, I don't know the logistics of what the big problem is for this team in terms of health, but it's got to be fixed because it's getting really, really frustrating. We're getting to the point where every week it's 4 or 5 extra guys added to the injury report. Let's see what else we have. Steven says, Kamara has cracked ribs, not healed yet. He's playing injured. Yeah, I mean, been playing injured since the Falcons game, which is nuts. So I'll get into any more comments that you guys have. I'll pull them up in just a second. Before I do that, I want to get one more last word from one of our sponsors, DraftKings Sportsbook.
TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, whatever you call a touchdown. They matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? To do so, you have to score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code BOOT. That's code BOOT, BOOT, for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Once again, thank you to DraftKings Sportsbook for being part of the program. We greatly appreciate it. Going to get into whatever comments we have left here on the Straight Up Saints podcast, and then we will wrap it up. Jose says, let Rattler play the rest of the season. Debo the God says, Saints had the easiest schedule in the NFL 2 years in a row. Yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating. You feel like every game you go into, you go, well, there's a good chance here for you to win the game, and nope, don't matter. Saints will find a way regardless of the opponent, and that part is really, really frustrating. Terry says it's Dennis Allen. They gave up today. What else do we have? Alex says, no shot. We're saying Lattimore was trash compared to what the other options are. Yeah, that comment didn't really get. Josh the Great says, how do you read comments or do you just pick them? Yeah, I just try to scroll through as many as possible and click on them, and sometimes I'll just kind of scroll, stop, and pick. If I missed anything that you specifically put, Josh, though, put it again in the chat and I'll read it right now once it funnels in. What else do we have? Christian says we are worse than all the bad teams on the schedule. Yes, outside of a couple. Like, I still think they'd beat the Panthers. I still think they beat the Browns, but that's about it. Like, the rest of them, you're kind of scrambling to figure out if they could win. Colby says you can tell none of the players want it. No one fights for yards or anything like that I see on the other teams. Debo the God says, when's the last time you've seen Foskey play? Kendrick Miller play? Kendrick Miller was the last game of the 2023 regular season, so we haven't seen him since January. For Foskey, the guy doesn't play. I mean, he's not good, so it's pretty frustrating. Sandra says, saw Mike T comment on Olave. Think he would ever come back? At least he's watching. Not sure. I don't think he would, but I don't think the Saints would go back to him. I think bridges were burnt. That's the best way to put it. Richard says, what if we stopped Philly on 3rd and 16? I don't know. At the very least, though, you have a one win more than you do right now. And that's why losses like that frustrate me, because the Saints came away going like, wow, we really hung with the Eagles. And that's like a loser mentality. Again, easy for me to say. I'm behind a keyboard. But that to me is wrong. You can't have that mentality. You had them dead to right, 3rd and 16, and you gave up a 61-yard play to Dallas Goedert, and they scored 2 plays later, and then you had the pick from Derek Carr to seal the game. Not good enough. So that became a frustrating loss. And you had the frustrating loss of Falcons. And you realize how much it matters to stack wins in this league, because you never know when you're going to snowball out of control. And clearly, the Saints are snowballing out of control. Fred says, feels like ass time Perry comes in and goes for 102 tutties. Meanwhile, Mason Tipton has a job for what? That's a great nickname. Great nickname. Brandon says, hire Ben Johnson and go get a top-notch defensive coordinator. I mean, Ben Johnson, maybe bring in Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh, by the way, I think is going to be great for whoever is going to hire him, because he's not going to get another head coaching job. So you're going to have a top-tier defensive coordinator for that long stretch, as long as your head coach who's with him knows what he's doing. Debo the God says 51 on us in the Dome, and Dan Campbell was coaching his ass off. Yeah, Cowboys, last time I checked, were getting absolutely dusted, so not surprised. Eddie says, what moves by trade deadline would you like to see us make? I mean, look, if you can get rid of some veterans, go for it. I don't see who's going to give up a lot for them, but go for it. Kendall says, defense gave up nearly 300 rushing yards. Man, crazy. This is the break says Bucks run this. I mean, they do right now. I mean, the way they just played. Michael says, I'm watching a real team right now, the Lions. I mean, the Lions look fantastic. No doubt about it. All phases, forcing turnovers, running the football well. Goff looks steady. Got a super chat from X says, Dennis Allen needs to be gone tomorrow. First off, thank you for the support. Second, couldn't agree more with you. I would have fired him today, like right after the game. I know he's not going to get fired, but I would fire him today on the spot. Darius says, I was in the Dome, and I think Rattler played fine. Hard to ask for a perfect game from a rookie. He was down for majority of the game. Yeah, again, struggled, but to be expected. I mean, rookie quarterback, injured O-line, not a lot of great weapons. You're playing down. It's natural to press. The question now is, how does he respond? If he comes back on Thursday and he looks pretty solid against a really, really good Denver defense, then that's fantastic. That's exactly what you'd want to see. Brandon says, I'd rather stick with Rattler the rest of the season compared to going back with Carr. I agree with you. Randall says, can't wait to watch Sean Payton come to the Dome and spank DA and Mickey. We might be there. Marcus says, bye week after Thanksgiving Bayou Classic weekend. The bye week can't come soon enough, man. Can't come soon enough. DA needs to be fired before morning. Hate to break it to you guys. I don't think that's going to happen. But if it does, I'll be here for a live stream and we'll talk about it. So we'll see. Anyway, guys, before we wrap up, I want to get into our closing argument here presented by Scott Fickner, Injury Lawyers. I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. I think losses like this are kind of an indictment on the head coach. 590 plus yards of total offense given up. You have defensive leaks everywhere. Run defense has been bad. Pass defense has been bad. Tackling has been piss poor. For the Saints, I said it last week, and I'm going to say it again. At some point, it should be win or lose your job. And we're reaching that pinnacle on Thursday. You get embarrassed by Sean Payton and the Broncos in the Dome, prime time, you got to turn off the lights. Turn off the lights. No one's home right now anyway, but you got to turn off the lights. So we'll see what happens with the Saints. They got to get it together on Thursday. If not, 2-0 to 2-5, it looks very possible. But the mood sucks. The mood absolutely stinks. We're all kind of dejected. Only hope now at this point in the season, and I know this sounds bleak, but it's the truth, is Spencer Rattler ends up looking like a starting quarterback. If that happens, then this season can be viewed not as a win, but there's one positive you can take away. If that doesn't happen, this will just end up being a total waste of our times. And that really, really sucks. So we'll see if that happens. Saints can turn around, or Rattler can at least look promising. But that's going to be my focus. How does the rookie look moving forward? That's going to do it for this edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I want to thank you guys so much for your support, the super chats, the comments, the thoughts, the suggestions. Really appreciate it, guys. You've been terrific. We'll have our halftime. We'll see about next week about halftime, but definitely our post-game live stream after the Thursday night game against the Broncos. And we'll have our preview show coming up in about a day or two here at Brew Crew Media. So make sure to subscribe to get more content from the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.